Welcome to part 1 of our professional development series, Teaching the Effects of Armed Conflict on Children through the Library of Congress website. Part 1, I'll be showing you how to use the Library of Congress website. Part 2 will speak to former child soldier Dennis Okema, and Part 3 will feature Rachel Zanders teaching you how to use the TPS Teachers Network. So what are primary sources? They are original documents and items that are produced in our day-to-day lives and as part of history. So what I'd like you to do right now is think about the last 24 hours of your life. What primary sources have you generated? So I'll just give you a moment to think about that. What primary sources that you've created in the last 24 hours? What do you have?
My daily journal.
That's an awesome primary source. All right, what else?
Texting, I guess.
Texting, primary source. Photographs, absolutely. I went into my bag and I pulled out my primary sources from the past 24 hours. Before I came, I had to renew my migraine medication, so this has all my information on it. It shows the date that it was received. Here's my hotel room key with my room number and all the information on it. I have a menu from the restaurant. We actually didn't eat here, but we stopped in, so you know that I stopped in at this restaurant if you looked at the menu. I have my receipt from the restaurant we did eat at, and I have a receipt from a store I stopped at. In addition, there are texts, there are emails, there are probably security camera images of me walking into the hotel. So in the past 24 hours, I have generated a plethora of primary sources, as have all of you. My Easy Pass has recorded me going through all the tolls on my way to get here. So those are primary sources, and we're generating them all the time. However, I don't think mine are going to have quite the historic significance as the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pocket on the day he died. But we are all generating primary sources all the time. Secondary sources are other materials that tell a story but not the original story. So encyclopedias, biographies, not autobiographies, obviously those would be a primary source, but biographies written by somebody else. Those would be secondary sources because they're not the originals that were created. Why use primary sources? I'm sure that all of you are here because you believe that primary sources are important to use in the classroom. So I don't want to go through and read this all to you because there's nothing worse than someone reading a PowerPoint to people, so I won't do that. But they definitely help you, help the students think critically. They look at a primary source, they evaluate it, they think, okay, what information can I get out of this picture, out of this map, out of this handwritten letter? What kind of paper was it used, written on? It gets the students' juices flowing and makes them think about the objects that they're looking at. And what's also wonderful is that it makes them want to ask more questions. What information is not in the primary source? I'm going to use the example of Abraham Lincoln's pockets again. Why was that Confederate dollar bill in his pocket? That it leads to more inquiry and other reasons. You know, let's find out what he was doing that day. Let's find out more information. So primary sources can lead to more questions and more discovery. I'm going to be showing you a few of the highlights of the Library of Congress website. Literally, you could spend the rest of your life exploring this website and still not see all of the amazing resources that they have to offer. However, I'd like to show you some ways to easily navigate and use the tools that are available on this website. Because all of you watching are educators, I'd like to start with the Teachers section. You'll find that in the center of the page. Right here, you'll see Teachers. We're going to click on that. And here you'll see the search feature for the Teachers section. What's wonderful is you can search by Common Core, state standard, or by organization that created the content. We're going to start by searching Common Core. So we're going to click the Common Core button. We're going to select the grade level we're going to use. Let's search 10th grade. And we're going to select the subject that we would like to use. The options are English Language Arts, Library/Technology, and Social Studies. Let's search English and Language Arts. And we're going to hit the search button. As you can see, This shows all of the state standards and the materials that are available for each of the standards. We're going to scroll down a little bit to be able to show you. All right, let's just look at State Standard Literacy RL 9-10 for 9th and 10th grade. There are 2 sets of classroom materials, and that's 2 primary source sets. If we look at the one above, you'll see there are 2 primary source sets, 1 presentation, and 4 collection connections. I'm going to be explaining each one of these in detail later on, so don't worry if you don't know what those mean yet. Now we're going to go back up to the top of the page and search by state standards. We're going to select state content, and we're going to go to my home state of Louisiana. And this time we're going to search grade 6. Again, we're going to scroll down, and you can see what materials are available for each of the state standards. Primary source sets, there's lesson plans, presentations, and again, collection connections. And you can go through and scroll through all of the state standards for each grade level and see what materials are available to support you in your curriculum. Another section of this website that I'd like to show you is using primary sources. Over on the left-hand side, we're going to click Using Primary Sources. Here you'll see why to use primary sources, which we've already covered, but more importantly, you'll see the teacher's guides and analysis tools. This is a great way for you to get your students thinking critically about primary sources. Why don't we check out Teacher's Guide to Analyzing Maps? Here you'll see observation questions, reflection questions, and then questions the students have after analyzing the document. This gives students a chance to say, where can I find more about this map? Where can I learn more information than I can get just by looking at one primary source? It really encourages the students to move forward in their critical thinking. You can print these up and use them in your classroom. The next thing I'm going to show you is the professional development section of the site. This will allow you to do self-guided modules to take you through other sections of the Library of Congress website. It's located in the Teachers section by clicking on Professional Development. As you can see, there are Take Online models on the right-hand side of the page. We're going to view self-directed modules. Here there are 6 available modules. Each one takes about an hour. If you want to go into a little more detail, it may take a little more. If you move at a faster pace, it may take a little less time. But make sure you give yourself a good hour in order to take these classes. We're going to look at supporting inquiry with primary sources. And as we scroll down, you'll see Start Here.
Welcome to the Library of Congress and welcome to Supporting Inquiry with Primary Sources. The Library of Congress is the largest library in the world. Founded in 1800, its collections contain cultural treasures from across thousands of years of human history, maps, manuscripts, sheet music, sound recordings, books, motion pictures, and more. Millions of these items are now available online at any teacher's fingertips. The items in the library's collections represent a unique record of human creativity and provide almost limitless opportunities for teaching and learning. Teachers use a variety of pedagogies in their classrooms every day in order to reach their students. One approach to consider is using a process of inquiry to empower students to take ownership of their learning. Come and discover how teachers can use primary sources to support inquiry in order to engage students, develop critical thinking skills, and allow students to construct knowledge.
Once you finish watching this clip, you'll click on Begin Program. Here, you'll see all of your instructions over on the right-hand side. To navigate through, you'll hit Next at the bottom. As you can see, there are interactive options for you to select as you go through. You'll highlight and then arrow over to add your answers. This is an excellent way to learn more about the features the Library of Congress website has to offer. We're going to close out of this and you can take this class at your own time and your own pace. The next thing I'd like to show you is how to use the classroom materials that are available on the teacher's website. Using the menu on the left side of the page, we're going to click on Classroom Materials. This menu is a permanent fixture in all of the teachers section of the Library of Congress website, so you can always use this menu to navigate to the section that you'd like to go to. What we're going to look at are lesson plans, so we're going to click on Lesson Plans at the top of the page. Here you can see that there are lesson plans on a variety of topics. Let's pick Culture and Folklife. As you can see, it includes all of the titles alphabetically, and it also includes the grade levels that are available for these lesson plans. Let's check one out. Primary Sources and Personal Artifacts. As you can see, it gives you an overview, and if we scroll down, you'll be able to see the objectives, standards, and time required to complete the lesson plans. If you use the navigation here, you can also then see preparation, procedure, and evaluation for the lesson plans. So really they have a complete workup for you on how to use the materials in the Library of Congress website. Going back to classroom materials, you'll also see that there are themed resources, primary source sets, presentations and activities, and collection connections. Primary source sets is a kind of interesting term, so let's go there next. What does it mean to have a primary source set? Basically, it's a set of primary sources all around a singular theme. As you can see at the top, Abraham Lincoln Rise to National Prominence, and let's click on that. So here, as we scroll down, we can see all of the primary sources that are available under the theme of Abraham Lincoln. A photograph, a poem, a personal letter, a draft of a speech on popular sovereignty, and many more, including maps of the US at the time he was a president, and other resources, all collected in one area, easily for you to get to. The last section I'd like to show you are themed resources. Similar to primary source sets, it's a collection of resources on a specific topic, but instead of just being the primary sources, it's all the materials that are available on a given topic. We're going to check out Abraham Lincoln again. This time, instead of seeing all of the primary sources about Abraham Lincoln and his time, we see all of the different resources that are available on Abraham Lincoln. If we click on Exhibitions and Presentations and scroll down, we'll find a variety of sources of presentations pertaining to Abraham Lincoln. If we go back up and click on Collection Connections, again, we're going to come up with an entire list of collections pertaining to Abraham Lincoln. So this is a great way if you're looking for a little more depth in what you're doing, rather than just finding the primary sources. By going to themed resources, you're going to come up with all of the material pertaining to Abraham Lincoln, not just the primary sources. All right, as I said, there are many things you can do on this website, and we could spend all day just on the teacher section, but I'd like to move on to the next section. Next, I'm going to show you my favorite section of the Library of Congress website. It's called Explore and Discover, and in here there are some really neat apps and tools that you can use in your classroom with your students. We're going to return to the home page by clicking on the Library of Congress logo in the top left of the screen. And scroll down on the home page to the bottom, you'll see Explore and Discover. By clicking on Today in History, it's going to take you to events in history that have happened on today's date. As you can see, we're filming on September 26th. Today in history, there is a photograph of Independence Hall in Philadelphia. I didn't plan it this way. We're actually filming in Philadelphia, and there happens to be a picture of Philadelphia up on the screen. What are the odds? Well, I guess pretty good, since our nation was founded there. By clicking on the archives, students can search their birthdays or other days that are important to them by clicking on the month and the day. We're going to search December 7th. Now, I'm sure all of you watching already know what happened on December 7th, but there's a really fantastic primary source that I wanted to show you. What this is a naval dispatch informing of the attack on Pearl Harbor. It may be a little hard to read on your screen, but what it says is, air raid on Pearl Harbor, this is not a drill. Let me just tell you, I got goosebumps again just reading that to you. It's amazing to see this piece of paper just announcing the attack on Pearl Harbor, and to be able to actually see this is not a drill. How many times do your students get fire drills and all kinds of things when they go on their bus and they have to do a drill on their bus, and in the school they do a fire drill? This is not a drill. The US was being attacked, and here's the piece of paper letting everybody know. This is the real world information that's available with primary sources on the Library of Congress website. And if we scroll down, you'll see many other resources that are available from the date of December 7th. This is a really fun activity, maybe a write-around activity for your students, just to pick one of the activities on any date, really. It doesn't have to be a birth date. It can be the last day of school or the first day of school or whatever day that you're interested in doing. So it's a really fun way to bring history to life. Another great section in Explore and Discover is Places in the News. If we click on the icon, it'll take us to the current places in the news. You can see Iraq and Syria have been in the news on a daily basis. Your students hear about these places, but do they really know where they are, what the history is? By clicking Read More, it gives you information about the country of Iraq. It gives you maps. It gives you profile information about the country. Also, what you can do is check out previous places in the news by clicking Previous Places in the News in the top center of your screen. Here you'll see there's a menu dating back into 1999, so there's 15 years of places in the news. This is really wonderful because students can learn about Sochi, Russia. What was happening? It was the Olympics. So if they wanted to know, where is Sochi? What is that all about? They can go and check that out. Let's go back to 2001. If we scroll down, you can see that September 2001, the place in the news was New York, and we all know why. September 11th happened then. So it's not just places in the news globally, it's also places in the news in our own country. And check out the apps. Everybody's heard the phrase, there's an app for that? Well, there are several apps for the Library of Congress website. Here you can see there's a Constitution app, there's a Congressional Record app, so you can see the riveting information that's available every day coming out of our legislative branch of the government. Scroll down. There's Bard Mobile, which is designed for hearing impaired readers, and there are 50,000 audio books, magazines, and music scores available, and with new selections added every day. There's also a virtual tour of the Library of Congress, which is absolutely amazing. The building itself is beautiful. So if you ever just want to take some time and you can't get to Washington, D.C., this is a great way to see the wonderful architecture of the Library of Congress. One more down is ASOP for Children. The Library of Congress isn't just for middle school and high school. There are also many resources that are available for elementary level teachers. We're going to return again by clicking the back button. Oh, I went too far. To Explore and Discover. You can also see that there are blogs and National Book Festival and read.gov. You can explore those on your own time. We don't have time to go through every section. Like I said, there's just so much information available. The next section I'd like to show you is front and center on the home page. So if we scroll up from Explore and Discover, we'll see collection highlights. Most of these titles are pretty self-explanatory, but one that you may not know what it means is American Memory. We're going to click on the icon, and you can see that we have collections of American memory by topic. These include presidents, religion, African American history, maps, immigration, and more. You can also click More Browse options and see even more details about these American memory topics. Since I had mentioned September 11th earlier, I'd like to click on that. Here you can see a documentary project that was done about 9/11. You can browse the collection by title, subject, audio, photograph, video, and written narratives. I'm going to click on audio. Here you'll see hundreds of interviews that were done with witnesses of September 11th. from firefighters to eyewitnesses to security personnel, all of them giving their personal accounts. Because we're talking about the effects of armed conflict on children, I'd like to take you to the interview with Amanda Mummery. She's a 5th grade student who was at her elementary school in Manhattan on September 11th, and she gives her personal story about her feelings on that day. We're going to click on Wave in order to listen.
So, Amanda, where were you on September 11th?
Well, I was at school, and I was at school.
Where do you go to school?
Nightingale. It's the Nightingale Bound for School. It's on 92nd between Medicine and 5th.
And what grade are you in?
5th grade.
So how did you hear about what happened?
Well, we happened to have morning meeting on that day, so we had morning meeting, and we all went into the auditorium, and Miss Hutchinson, who's the head of the school, said, well, some planes just crashed into the World Trade Center, and so everyone was kind of scared, and everyone started talking, and she said, well, some people may have to sleep over at school, but we're going to try to keep calm throughout the day. And so, we weren't really that scared yet, because we thought, oh, well, there are some planes and they've crashed and it's just made a little hole in the World Trade Center. They're going to be fixed. It's okay. So we got back to class, and for a few periods, everyone was a little scared that day, but we came up to the room after lunch, and there were some girls in there, and they said, well, the World Trade Center has collapsed, and they were really scared, and everyone got really scared because some parents worked in the building, so some people started to cry, and some were really scared. So then we just had a regular day. Well, we didn't really have a regular day. People were kind of scared, and so then we left school and we watched the news for the rest of the day.
So you left school? Did your mom pick you up? Or
yeah, some people left school. I left school at the regular time.
Oh, so you went to your classes all that
Yeah.
time. So what do you think about what happened?
It's kind of scary. I didn't really believe it was ever gonna happen. I knew that war could happen, and I was always kind of scared, but now it's really kind of scary. So yeah.
So did you watch? So what happened when you were watching the news all day?
Well, we basically just came home and watched the news, and they were talking about some people getting out. They interviewed some people. They showed pictures of the hospital, and they said, well, give blood donations. Go to the hospital and give blood donations. And so it was just really scary. They showed pictures of the World Trade Center and of the plane, and it was on every channel.
Yeah.
So,
and did you watch the news all night?
yeah, basically. I stayed up pretty late because they didn't have school the next day.
Or you stayed home?
Yeah, we stayed home.
And then you went back to school on Thursday?
Yeah, on Thursday.
Was it strange then? What was it like on Thursday?
Well, everyone was kind of shaky, and that's all we were talking about. So it was kind of strange, yeah.
Is school normal, back to normal now?
Pretty much. It's a little weird, but it's all back to normal. People still occasionally talk about it. A few teachers live down there, so there are lots of pictures of their houses, because some people's houses were in the news who live down there. And then well, everyone is kind of getting back to normal. I think a few people are a little depressed, but I'm a little depressed sometimes, but it's better than it was before. I'm sort of coming out of it.
Once you're finished listening, click the back button. To return, clicking it twice will take you back to the list of options. There are many more truly compelling interviews that you can listen to. I would encourage you to explore them when you have some time. Next, we're going to click the back button to return to collection highlights. The next section I'd like to show you is the map section. This is a wonderful section to explore because many of the conflicts we're experiencing today can be seen through the lines on the maps. I was recently looking through the map section to learn more about the Berlin Conference in 1884. This conference was also known as the Scramble for Africa. We can see by searching Africa Treaty and clicking Go, we can find a map that was the result of this conference. By clicking on Map of Africa by Treaty, we can see an image from 1909, just after the conference was held. We're going to click Enlarge so we can get a larger view of this map. What's wonderful about the maps on the Library of Congress website is that you can zoom and really go into these maps. They are very high definition. So let's zoom in on a section here. We're going to click the plus sign in the top center in order to zoom, and then to zoom out again, we're going to hit the minus. But let's stay here for a moment. Here we can see the lines that were drawn. The lines look very straight in some places, and also the regions that were divided up are massive. Africa is a massive, massive continent. It's 3 times the size of Europe. Let's zoom out a little bit again so we can get a scale for what it was divided into. Look at this huge section of land. This was all included in one territory. This section of land is about the size of Europe in and of itself, and yet it's one territory instead of many. These lines caused a lot of conflict because it divided historic territories that were run by separate tribes into one area. I would encourage you to explore many of the maps that are available on the Library of Congress website. It's a wonderful analytical tool for your students to examine and learn from these maps. All right, the next section I'd like to take you to is prints and photographs. By clicking back, we can head back. You can also always, in order to go back, just click on loc.gov at the top and it will take you back. There are a lot of ways to navigate this site. No one way is best. It's whatever you're comfortable with. We've all heard the phrase, "a picture is worth 1,000 words." Well, on the Library of Congress website, that phrase holds true. Let's check out prints and photographs by clicking on the prints and photographs icon. Photographs are so important in showing the effects of armed conflict on children because it shows the real situations these children are put in. Thinking about the current situation in Sudan and the conflict that arose between South Sudan and Sudan, let's type Sudan into the search phrase here and click Go. As you can see, there are 249 photographs pertaining to Sudan. We're going to narrow that by adding another term to our search. We're going to type in refugee and click Go again. Now you can see we're down to 7 results. These results show a refugee camp from 2004 while the conflict was still going on. As we scroll down, you can see the list. The first image was a child holding an AK-47. There's also children at a refugee camp, and you can see refugee women and children underneath a tree. These are very compelling images, because the students can really see the faces of young people their own age being affected by this conflict. The next section I'd like to take you to is the webcast section. The Library of Congress has many excellent speakers that speak live at the Library of Congress. For those of us who are not in Washington, D.C., they are also available online through the webcasts. Let's scroll up to the top of the page and click on the Library of Congress logo to return to the homepage. Webcasts are located in the center of the Library of Congress homepage. By scrolling down, you'll see there's a webcast featured with Larry King. By clicking on More Webcasts, you'll see that we have a whole section of webcasts available from the Library of Congress. You can browse, or you could use the search bar at the top to do a search. We're going to search for Congo, which is an area of conflict currently in Africa. Here we found 4 results. What I'd like to highlight for you is the poem by Omakonga Dibinga. He reads his poem, The African, the American. In this poem, he talks about the conflict that children experience in Africa and the gang violence that children experience in America. he talks about how warlords encourage children not to go to school and take up arms, and how drug lords encourage children to join gangs and not go to school. His portrayal of both the conflict in America and the conflict in Africa is moving and powerful by hearing it in his own words. Let's click on Omekongo Dibinga to come to his poem. We're going to hit play. It may take a second to load, don't worry. To hear the poem The African, the American, please jump to the 16-minute and 36-second mark by scrolling over.
This next poem is dedicated to all of my hyphenated Americans. So for all of my Congolese Americans, my Cuban Americans, anyone who's had to deal with these identity issues of being born in one place but having to represent another. It's probably everybody in the room. This poem is entitled The African, the American. Some people desire to inquire what my name means because it sounds so powerful. Omekongo, like I need to play some drums when I say it. Others ask me if it's my birth name as if it's any of their business. But short of the intrinsic inclination to put inhabitants in predetermined non-pensive packages, few people ever ask me what it's like to be an African in America and an American in Africa. Because for real, I feel like I need to relocate to the center of the Atlantic Ocean because I'm truly caught in the middle. The African, the American. I'm remixing Angie Palmer's words from I've been rich and I've been poor to I've been dissed and I've been torn. Because I've been torn between being called the American Negro and the African Bush Boogie. I'm torn between having to speak African to prove that I'm African in America and speaking French to prove that I'm African in Francophone African countries. What? I'm torn between dealing with the gangs and the tribes, both practicing ethnic cleansing. I'm torn between dealing with one set of my belabored brothers dying for hot diamonds and my other beleaguered brothers living to be iced out. But it still doesn't even out. I'm torn between watching trafficked African sex slaves how I'm being torn and American child porn. I'm torn between dealing with the child soldier and the child gangbanger on the corner. I'm torn between dealing with African military leaders telling our kids they don't need school to rule, and American hip-hop artists telling our kids they don't need school to be rich or cool. I'm torn between dealing with corporations using both my communities as a toxic ditch. I'm torn between Amabutu Sese Seko and I'm Rick James, sis. And I don't know whether to laugh or cry, sis, because as proud as I am to be who I am, I sometimes feel like I have an identity crisis. Now I know why I'm so fond of Transformer cartoons, because the way that people always want me to change up, I feel like I might as well switch my name from Omekongo to Optimus Dibinga until people realize that in getting past my name and frame, there's much more than meets the eye. But whether I be the American countryman or the transcontinental African, I know that both identities end and I can. So I know that I can be me. Let my words do the talking and my actions do the walking, because I will never fit into your box, whether I have a fade or some locks. So the next time you're trying to figure out who I am and which stereotypical categories I cover, I'll be covered in content if you just called me that brother. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that poem as much as I do every time I hear it. There are just a few final sections of the Library of Congress website that I'd like to show you before we finish for today. I'm going to return to the Library of Congress homepage by clicking on the icon in the top left corner. Back on the Library of Congress homepage, we'll find congress.gov. Clicking on the link, it'll take you to the congress.gov website. Here we find bills and legislation that are currently before Congress, as well as bills and legislation that have been passed and those that have died on the floor. You can search legislation here in the center or by browsing through and clicking Browse at the top. I'll let you all explore that more later on your own. We're going to return to the Library of Congress website by clicking loc.gov here in the top corner. I'd also like to show you the TPS regional websites. We're located in Philadelphia, so we're part of the Eastern region, which stretches from Maine to Florida. By checking out this website, you can see which section you fall into. We're going to find the TPS regional website by going to the Teachers section in the center of the homepage and clicking on the Teachers link. You'll find TPS Partners here on the left-hand menu. Then we're going to click on Go to Teaching with Primary Sources website. Here, you'll click on Read More about the TPS Regional Program. Then at the top of the page, click on TPS Regional Websites. Here you'll find a map with each region. Let's click on the Eastern region. Here on the Eastern region website, you'll find current workshops that are going on, plus the results of past workshops. I would encourage you to explore each of the TPS regional programs to find out what exciting TPS information is happening in your area. We're going to return to the Library of Congress website by clicking Library of Congress TPS. The last feature I'd like to show you is very important. Ask a librarian. There are expert librarians available for you to use at the Library of Congress. Even if you can't get there in person, you can still ask a librarian. Click on the link at the top of the page to get to the Ask a Librarian. You can browse to find an answer to your question, or scroll down and use the General Inquiries form. If you've got a question and you don't know the answer, click on that and you can fill out your information. They give you excellent attention to all of the questions that are asked to the Library of Congress. Your questions will not be ignored. So please, if you've got something that you'd like to know, ask a librarian. They are there to help you in whatever you need. I hope you enjoyed exploring the Library of Congress website in order to find out the effects of armed conflict on children. In order to continue our discussion, please join us on the Blackboard site to submit your questions about the Library of Congress website. Also, on the Blackboard website, you'll be able to find the resources and materials discussed during today's program. And join us for part 2 when we speak with Dennis Okema, former child soldier from Uganda. Thank you.